Ooh, I actually have a little YouTube corner now. I'm hype. Okay, I'm tired. Let me drink some wine. Y'all, it is like 12 o'clock. I have to be at work at 6. But I felt like I had to get this video out of the way before you guys didn't care anymore about the moving stuff. So welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren La Rosa. For those of you guys who are watching for the first time, if this is your first video, make sure you click the red subscribe button so that this will not be your last. Welcome to the Dreamer Gang. So I live here in LA. I've been living here for 3 years and some months now. I recently just moved to an apartment. I had a roommate before. We lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And then we decided, it was like so ironic that we both had kind of like just come to the point where we just wanted to try living on our own. I'd never lived by myself before. Since I've graduated college, I lived at home, and then I had roommates. Even in college, I had roommates. I never lived by myself before. Mariah had actually lived by herself for about a year here in LA, but she really didn't like the apartment. So when both of us got to a point where we could move, we were like, let's do it together so we could get something really nice. And then we did that, and then toward the end of the lease, which just so happened to be a few weeks ago, like not even a month ago now, Mariah got booked to go on tour with Drake, and I got a promotion at work, and I think we just really both just got to the point where we were like, okay, we really want to try it on our own. So when Mariah comes back, she'll do an apartment by herself. She'll probably hang out here for a little bit, and then I recently just moved into an apartment on my own, well, with my boyfriend, but I mean, it's kind of like living by myself because, like, yeah, boys don't care. Like, I decorate how I want, whatever. And my apartment search this time around, guys, was very, very different. Another thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want to like start looking so early that by the time I was ready to move, the apartment was already sold to someone else. When you're looking for apartments in places like LA, New York, probably even Atlanta now, because Atlanta is becoming one of those cities as well. Anywhere like that, that's like a super popular, really populated city. It's really, really hard to, like, if I find an apartment like today, 3 months from now, that apartment is probably going to be gone. And if not, you're either lucky or you're trying to figure out why. Like, why hasn't it been rented? So one thing I didn't want to do was find an apartment, fall in love with it, and then, you know, when it's time for me to actually move and put down the money and all that good stuff, the apartment's gone. I have 2 apartment search videos. In both of those videos, the apartments that I saw, except for one, I hated. And when I tell you guys it looked nothing like that online, it was bad. What apartments do I suggest? Now, LA is huge. I've yet to even see all of LA, so I don't have like specific apartments that I suggest. Like I just mentioned to you guys, it was hard for me, and I've been living here. I didn't want to like be in a position where all of my money goes to rent again. I literally felt like I just kind of got out of that position where all of my money was going to rent and I have no money to put back into myself or just anything extra, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I suggest an apartment that makes sense for you financially. Like, I even looked at studios. Now, I'm not a studio person because I have a lot of company. Like, I know when me and Mariah first moved in, I used to feel bad because, like, literally every single month, and sometimes twice a month, I have friends, like, crashing over or coming to hang out, or family coming in town. My best friends are in town, like, whatever. Like, people use LA as like their getaway, and then I live here, so it's like easy for them to just get up and come. So I wanted to keep that in mind. Not that I was apartment shopping for other people, but like I wanted to keep that in mind. So I suggest somewhere that you can afford, something that makes sense for your living situation. You know, I have a lot of visitors, I have to accommodate them. Something that makes you feel safe and comfortable. I know with me, I ended up staying in my apartment complex where I've been living because I didn't want to force too much on myself financially, and I really only found one apartment that I loved by the time it was time for me to move, and it was a little expensive, and I didn't want to take that leap right away. That is the type of apartment you need to find, something that makes sense for you financially, and it's different for everybody. What, you know, I can afford now after being here 3 years is completely different than what I could afford when I first moved here. me and Mariah were laughing the other day on FaceTime when I found the apartment that I really loved other than this one, because I was telling her like, oh, it's a 1-bedroom, it overlooks downtown, like, you know, parking, all that good stuff. Landlord was cool, like, you know, application process was really easy. And I was like, it's only $19.50. And she was like, oh, well, you know, between you and D, like, that's not bad. Like, that's like what me and her, we were paying $17.98 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. So it kind of evens out as the same. But she was like, it's so crazy because when we first moved here, hearing $19.50 for a 1-bedroom apartment sounded like the end of the world. Okay, I get asked this a lot on YouTube, actually. People always ask me, should they see the apartment in person before they put money down? They're worried about finding an apartment for a really, really affordable price, or finding like a roommate situation for a really affordable price and not locking it down before they come and then it be gone. I do not suggest anywhere you move, especially here in LA though, I do not suggest that you put down money on an apartment at all before you see it. Every apartment that I went to see in my 2 last apartment search vlogs, they looked amazing online. And I probably saw about a good 10 apartments. I think I added maybe only 6 into the last 2 vlogs. Out of the 6 that you guys saw, if even 6, only one of them, and you see it for yourself in the videos, only one of those apartments actually looked like, okay, this is something I would actually live in. Especially because in places like LA, you can literally be living on one block that looks super, super nice, turn the corner and it's ratchet as all get out. And you know, you might not be comfortable with that. How can I find a roommate? So me and Mariah, who was my last roommate, we were friends. We knew each other from home, and then we both moved here at the same time, so we got close because we were both from the same place and both moved here. And then Mariah was staying with a friend when she first moved here, and so was I. We both knew our friends from before we got here, so that could be one way to find a roommate. Reaching out to people who you already know live here, and asking them like, hey, are you looking for a roommate? Do you have, you know, an extra room or a couch you wouldn't mind me crashing on or whatever? That gets pretty old pretty fast though, not even gonna lie. Like, I appreciate the fact that I was able to do that, but you know, people want their own space. So if you can find a roommate situation where it's, you know, you actually renting a room, a lot better. And maybe that even happens with a friend, even better. One way that I did it, I was, you know, just kind of like desperate need of a living situation. I had moved into an apartment. We did a 3-bedroom condo. It was me, a former friend, and like a random person they just placed in the building. This is when I was a flight attendant. I was a flight attendant with Delta for like 9 months. I was barely ever home. And then when I would be home, my roommates didn't get along. The apartment was so bomb, but I was just like, I can't live with y'all beefing and like all this extra stuff. It was just falling apart. So I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. And I was gonna move to base and ended up getting a job at TMZ. So I stayed in LA and just needed an apartment really, really fast. I was like on Facebook. Facebook has these Facebook groups. I know some popular ones are apartments in LA, roommates in LA, shared rooms and apartments in LA. Like, if you just look up LA apartments, LA roommates, the groups will pop up. You request to join, and sometimes people can even add you, and it shows you if you know people that are in the groups already. You can like text them or write them, be like, hey, add me to the group. But there's people on there posting all day long like, hey, I have a 2-bedroom, I'm looking for a roommate, $900 a month. It was about credit and how much you have to make to qualify for an apartment in LA. Those things are also very particular to you in the apartment that you're applying for. Normally with the like newer, larger apartment complexes, they're going to be pretty strict, but it just depends on like, you know, I guess like how well you can talk to people. Of course, if you have like really, really messed up credit, no job, like it's going to be pretty hard. I would suggest if you're moving here and you don't have a job set up and you don't have a lot of money saved, I would suggest you finding a roommate, somebody who's not really looking for you to sign a lease or anything like that, Or I would suggest that you do like a sublease situation, like somebody who's just renting their apartment for a couple months. You can also find those on the Facebook pages, because sometimes it's pretty hard for you to find an apartment if you don't have either or. Apartments, when you apply, they're going to look at your credit, they're going to look at your job history, they're going to look at your payment history on your credit, like how well do you pay your bills, and they're also going to look at your rental history. I know with me, us moving into this apartment, this was my first time ever renting an apartment as far as putting my name on a lease. I had, you know, like I told you guys, my apartment before this, before me and Mariah, I didn't have to put my name on a lease. In college, I was housing through college, so it wasn't a lease situation. And then before that, I lived at home. So I didn't really have too much rental history at all, to be honest. But I had a solid job history. I had been at TMZ for like a year. When I moved into this apartment, one thing that I learned was that you are more than your credit portfolio. There's a lot of factors that go into things. They looked at my credit, my payment history, my job history, and they also looked at like how much money I had in savings and stuff like that. They look at how much money you make, but they look at how much money you make before taxes. So once everything was determined, I was actually good enough to apply and be approved for our 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom by myself. Final question, what apps or websites did I use to apartment search? So I used Trulia, I used Facebook Marketplace, I used Trulia, I used Facebook Marketplace, and I just went to like rentals, which were like the apartment rentals. I used Zillow, I used Hotpads. I used Hotpads a lot. Like Hotpads was like, that's my like go-to. I don't use Craigslist. Like I probably will only get on Craigslist to look for something if I'm like desperate. Craigslist to me is full of weirdos and I just don't have time. That brand new apartment that I saw that I actually loved, I actually didn't look on an app for that. One thing that we found really helpful when I was looking, so I would go to areas that I had found apartments on with these apps or whatever, and just ride around and see what apartment building said like now leasing. So if something caught my attention, like if the building looked nice and it said now leasing, I literally just pulled up, called, and was just like, hey, I'm outside, can I come see a 1-bedroom? Like, and I found I found like 2 or 3 places that way. I found more places that way, honestly, than the apps. But so that is it, guys. I am exhausted. I have to go back to work in the morning. Labor Day weekend is over. I'm so excited. We got a little YouTube corner now, though. Okay, cheers to that. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Share this video with your friends. Don't know who may be looking for an apartment, but I feel like it's always good to know how to look because it gets pretty time consuming if you don't. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to drop them below in the comments. Click that button to subscribe once again, and follow me on Instagram at Lauren La Rosa. It's also in the description box and linked throughout this video. See you guys tomorrow.